So in the last section, we discussed that how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu responded, to the criticism and the queries of the Mayavad sannyasis. They were very curious to know that why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even though he was a sannyasi and had taken sannyas from their sampradaya, but he was not engaged in the two primary activities that they thought a sannyasi should be engaged in. And what were those two primary activities? They were dhyan
Studying Veda.
and gyan, right? Studying the Vedas and meditation. So these are the two that the Mayavadis, sannyasis, they focus on, two activities. And they were surprised that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would be singing and dancing and, chanting. And they felt that this sannyasi, he was acting out of character. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was passing through Benares on his way um, to Vrindavan, he received a lot of criticism from them. But he just simply smiled and, he was patient. He tolerated that criticism. And then he went on to Vrindavan and he said, he felt, he decided in his mind that he would deal with them once he uh, returned from Vrindavan. So when he came back from Vrindavan, he, spent more time in Benares, and then he accepted an invitation from a Brahmana who had organized an assembly of these, great sadhus in the city, especially the Mayavad sannyasis. And then, as we saw last time, that um, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he took a very humble position, and he chose to sit, in a place which would consider, a very low, place where the sannyasis washed their feet. So after, washing his own feet, then he just sat down there. But because, he is the Lord himself, he was emanating this great effulgence. And Prakashananda Saraswati, who was, was the leader of the sannyasis, when he saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, emanating such effulgence, he just couldn't sit down. He stood up and then he went to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He held his hand and he made him come and sit with them. And then he questioned Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on why he chose, to sing and dance and associate with all these so-called sentimentalists, others who would just only chant and dance. Whereas he felt that his primary duty should be to cultivate knowledge and also meditate. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained in such a beautiful, innocent, and faithful way that why he was chanting and not engaging in the study of Vedanta. And what was the reason? Does anyone remember? Yes, Sheetal Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, what I remember is that he said that my spiritual master said I'm a great fool and I cannot understand the Vedas, so that's why he said you just chant and sing the names of God. So that's what I remember, Prabhuji.
So that's, yes, that's one part of the answer, and thank you. You remembered that, but there is also, um, along with that, that he saw him as a great fool and that he should not study Vedanta and that he should chant. So why should he chant? Just because he's a great fool, or is there another reason why he should chant?
Because it is the sense of all the Vedas and all the mantras.
Okay, and you have to clarify it a little bit more.
Because that is the ultimate, that is the final state of a devotee, to chant and to dance in happiness, in ecstasy, in Lord's name.
Okay.
यहाँ भी क्लास हो रही है
So, what's another reason that why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's spiritual master, he told him to chant the holy names? Which is the verse that he told him to keep always in his throat?
Hare Nam.
Yes. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam. Right? So, why he told him to chant is because this is the prescribed method of worship, or the most effective way to worship the Lord in the age of Kali. So it is the authorized process for this age. So it's not that just he saw him as a fool, yes, but he also recommended the chanting of the holy names based on the fact that this is the prescribed method of worshipping the Lord in the age of Kali. And this is the most effective method, and there is no other way, there is no other alternative, there is no other alternative. Okay. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he explained in such a beautiful way that how, when he started chanting and faithfully carrying out the orders of his spiritual master, he began to he began to experience all these ecstatic symptoms, like crying and laughing and being so joyful, and he was singing, and so he felt that as if he was almost going mad. And then he felt that this madness was covering his knowledge. He was just becoming so crazy that he felt that he had to go to his Guru Maharaj and ask him that what he's experiencing, uh, why is he experiencing what is he experiencing? Because he was becoming doubtful that this process is making him crazy. So then he went to his Guru Maharaj and he told him that, oh Gurudev, please dispel my doubt. Like, I'm going through all these transformations. And so when his Guru Maharaj heard him, then he was so pleased and he said that, yes, you are experiencing the gift of the Maha Mantra, which is Krishna Prema, which is even beyond all the other, objectives of, Vedic literature, which is like Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. It's even beyond that. And so, um, his spiritual master, he was very, very pleased with him, and he expressed his deep gratitude that you have achieved, the highest uh, gift of the Maha Mantra. And then he gave him an instruction. And what was that instruction? Does anyone remember, which is the basis of Lord Chaitanya's movement? Yes. Who answered that one?
It's Nandini was sitting along.
Okay. We can't see her. Yeah. So, Nacho Gao Bhakta Sange Koro Sankirtan. So beautiful. Krishna Nama Upadeshi Tare Sarvajan. So this verse is so significant for all of us, because this is the basis of the Krishna consciousness movement, um, which was inaugurated by the Lord Himself, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then how did he respond to that order from his spiritual master? How did he respond to that order? So he responded by saying that I had Tara Vakya Ami Drida Vishvasa Kori. So I had firm faith in the orders of my spiritual master. And Nirantara Krishna Nama Sankirtana Dhori. So he unceasingly, what did he do? He took the names of Lord Krishna with great faith in the words of his spiritual master. And then he concluded by saying that don't think that I chant and dance out of my own desire, but there is a superior force that is making me chant and dance. So on the force of this supreme authority, I am engaged in this chanting and dancing and singing, just like a madman. So this was the last, verse that we covered in our discussion 2 weeks ago. So far everyone is okay. All right, so we're going to begin with the discussion from verse number. Just one second. Are you able to see this PowerPoint slide?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
So this is verse number 99. Prabhura mishta vakya suni sanyasira gana chitta firi gyalo kohe madhura vachan. So after hearing Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the sannyasis were moved. Their minds changed, and thus they spoke with pleasing words. And Srila Prabhupada writes in this very nice purport that these sannyasis, they had great opposition to this Sankirtan movement. In fact, Prabhupada writes in one of the purports that the intent of meeting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was to convince him not to chant the Mahamantra and join them in cultivating knowledge and engaging in meditation. So Prabhupada writes that this opposition to the Sankirtan movement exists perpetually. He said it existed in the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, similarly existed long before that, even in the time of Prahlad Maharaj. He used to chant in Sankirtan, although his father did not like it, and that was the reason for the misunderstanding between the father and the son. And then Prabhupada also mentions in one of the purports that even today, the Krishna consciousness movement, sometimes we face great opposition, especially in many countries, where devotees, are imprisoned, they're tortured, they are told that they're brainwashed, and they have all these people trying to get them out of this counsel, out of their practicing Krishna consciousness. Sometimes you get criticized so much for distributing books or chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra on the streets. So many different types of opposition even today we have to experience. So Prabhupada said this has existed perpetually, and but we must go on despite this, as we see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that how by his own example he convinced the Mayavad sannyasis, eventually, and established, a philosophical basis for this Sankirtan movement. Then the next verse, the the Mayavad sannyasis, they said that যে কিছু কইল তুমি সব সত্য হয়, কৃষ্ণ প্রেমে সে পায় যার ভাগ্যোদয়. So dear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whatever you have said is all true. Only one who is favored by fortune attains love of Godhead. So this is a wonderful acknowledgement by the Mayavad sannyasis that that one who is actually fortunate, that they attain the love of Godhead. So they are acknowledging that. After Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he shares his experience of how he experienced Krishna Prema by chanting the Maha Mantra. And Prabhupada writes in the purport that how out of millions of living entities, Brahmanda Brahmite Kono Bhagyavan Jeev. This is what Rupa Goswami says. Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Beach. So out of millions of conditioned souls wandering throughout the planetary systems in so many different bodily forms, one who's fortunate, he meets his bona fide spiritual master by the grace of Krishna and comes to understand the meaning of devotional service. And then by discharging devotional service under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master or acharya, he develops love of Godhead. And such a person is considered extremely fortunate. And the Mayavadi sannyasis admitted this fact to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then Prabhupada concludes, he says that it is not easy for one to become a Krishna conscious person, but by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it can be possible, as will be proven in the course of this narration. So this is something that happens by great fortune, and the fact that we have all received this opportunity to be connected with this great movement, this Krishna consciousness movement, and by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we can also attain success on this path. So we should always keep in mind and be grateful for this, this very, 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 very fortunate opportunity to engage in Krishna consciousness. So then, after appreciating his great fortune, so Mayavad sannyasis, they say that that we are very much satisfied that you being a great devotee of the Lord. But they still have one doubt. They say, Vedanta na suno kyano taraki badosh. So why do you avoid discussion on the Vedanta Sutra? What is the fault in it? So they're very curious to understand that why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he avoids the Vedanta Sutra. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he hears the question, he smiles and he says, Eta suniha se Prabhu bolila vachana dukkha namana jodi kori nivedana. After hearing the Mayavad sannyasis speak in that way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu smiled slightly and said, My dear sirs, if you don't mind, dukkha namana yodi, if you don't mind, I would like to say something regarding the Vedanta philosophy. And as soon as the Mayavad sannyasis, they hear this, they become very, very pleased. ইহা শুনে বলে সর্ব সন্ন্যাসীরা গান, তোমাকে দেখিয়া যাইছে সাক্ষাৎ নারায়ণ. So hearing this, the Mayavad sannyasis became somewhat humbled, and they addressed Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Narayan himself, who they all agreed he was. So as we know that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was emanating this beaming effulgence, just like the Lord Narayan himself. And then Prabhupada writes in the purport that usually the Mayavad sannyasis, what do? They address each other as Narayan. So whenever they see another sannyasi, they offer him respect by calling Om Namo Narayana. I offer my respect unto you, Narayan. Although they know perfectly well what kind of Narayan he is. So Prabhupada makes a sarcastic comment here. He says, Narayan has 4 hands, but although they are puffed up with the idea of being Narayan, they cannot exhibit more than 2. So they're calling each other Narayan, but they don't have the potency of Lord Narayan to exhibit his 4 hands. And not only to do that, Prabhupada also explains that they sometimes use this word Daridra Narayan, poor Narayan, which was invented by a so-called Swami who did not know anything about Vedanta philosophy. So Srila Prabhupada raises this objection that this term Daridra for Narayan doesn't make any sense. Because after all, who is Narayan? Narayan is, he has so many Lakshmis, serving him. So, how can, it be possible for him to become poor or Daridra? So this term of, calling people as Daridra Narayan or Narayan, this is not, really authentic. These are not authorized statements that one should be making. Therefore, although all these sannyasis, Mayavad sannyasis, who call themselves Narayan, they were actually unaware of the position of Narayan. But due to their austerities, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu enabled them to understand him to be Narayan himself. So this was the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that he blessed them with that ability to see Lord Chaitanya as Narayan himself. And they tell Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that Tomara vachan suni judaya shravana, Tomara madhuri dekhi judaya nayan. My dear Lord Chaitanya, they said, to tell you the truth, we are greatly pleased to hear your words. And furthermore, your bodily features are so pleasing that we feel extraordinary satisfaction in seeing you. So they're so delighted and so pleased, not just by hearing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but by also, seeing his beautiful features. And why were they able to appreciate Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Srila Prabhupada writes that because the Mayavadis offered a little respect to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and because they were pious and actually followed the austere rules and regulations of sannyas, they had some understanding of Vedanta philosophy. And by the grace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they could appreciate that he was none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is endowed with all 6 opulences. Okay. So someone has to mute. 1 second. Yes. So now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is going to begin to speak, and he's going to explain that what is the meaning of Vedanta, what is the real purpose and the meaning of Vedanta. So in the next few verses which are okay, there's one more verse before he starts speaking. So in this verse, the Mayavad sannyasis, they appreciate that that his words, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's words, will never be unreasonable. Tomara prabhave shobhar anandita mana kabhu asangat nahe tomara vachan. So we believe that your words will never be unreasonable. Therefore, you may speak on the Vedanta Sutra. And Prabhupada explains in this purport that unless one is spiritually advanced, he cannot influence an audience. So the real influence happens when we are really pure in our Krishna consciousness. So Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur has sung, Shuddha Bhakta Charana Renu Bhajana Anukula. Unless one associates with a pure devotee, he cannot be influenced to understand devotional service. And Srila Prabhupada, he writes that these Mayavad sannyasis, they were so fortunate enough to meet the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of a devotee. And certainly, they were greatly influenced by the Lord. They knew that since a perfectly advanced spiritualist never says anything false, all his words are reasonable and agree with Vedic version. So they had great confidence that whatever Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would say would be highly reasonable. And that's why they tell him that please speak something on the Vedanta Sutra. Now, in the next 3 verses, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he establishes, the meaning and the foundational explanation for what is Vedanta. So I'll read these 3 verses, starting from verse number 106. Prabhu kahe Vedanta Sutra Ishvara Vachana Vyasa Rupe Koilo Jaha Sri Narayan. The Lord said, Vedanta philosophy consists of words spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, in the form of Vyasadeva. So Vedanta philosophy is spoken by whom or compiled by whom? By Sri Vyasadeva, who is considered the literary incarnation. So he's a Shakti Vesh avatar of the Lord himself. So 6 types of avatars, and he's one of, the Shakti Vesh avatar of the Lord himself, Vyasadeva. And because he's the avatar of the Lord himself, in 107, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that the material defects of mistakes, illusions, cheating, and sensory inefficiency do not exist in the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So whatever Vyasadeva has compiled, right, it is beyond the 4 defects, and that's why it is completely accurate, pure, and authorized. And then in 708, he gives he gives a guideline that how Vedanta Sutra should be understood. And he says that Mukhya Vritti Shay Artha Parama Mahatva. So the supreme truth is described in the Upanishads and Brahma Sutra, but one must understand the verses as they are. So Mukhya Vritti. And we'll discuss what this means. That is the supreme glory in understanding. So, our understanding of the Vedanta will only be glorious when we take the direct meaning of the Vedanta Sutra. Mukhya Vritti. This is the direct meaning. So now if you've seen that Srila Prabhupada has written very extensive purports, right? So what I have done is that instead of going through each purport individually and explaining different aspects of the Vedanta philosophy, I've compiled um, all his key statements in the purports regarding Vedanta, and I will now share with you in these slides, and we will discuss this together. Okay. So I request you to pay very careful attention, because the next part of the discussion is a little philosophical, but it's taken directly from Srila Prabhupada's purports, all the statements. So the first question is, what is Vedanta? What are the Vedanta Sutras? So Srila Prabhupada explains that the Vedanta Sutra, which consists of aphorisms. So aphorism means a very concise statement, right? Or a sutra or a code, right? Revealing the method of understanding Vedic knowledge, is a concise form of all Vedic knowledge. So the Vedanta Sutras, they were compiled by Vyasadeva, and it was his compilation of all the key philosophical points in the Vedic literatures. And in the Vedas, the philosophical section of the Vedas are called the Upanishads. And so what um, Srila Vyasadeva did was that he consolidated all the philosophical points in the Upanishads, and he expressed them in, I think the Vedanta Sutra has 550 something sutras. And he compiled them into these, very concise codes. And here, the definition of a sutra is explained in the Vayu and Skanda Purana, and Srila Prabhupada shares that. He says, a sutra is a compilation of aphorisms that express the essence of all knowledge in a minimum of words. It must be universally applicable and faultless in its linguistic presentation. This is what um, Vyasadeva did, and 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 the Vedanta Sutra is also known as the Brahma Sutra, the Shararika, Vyasa Sutra, and all these that are stated here. So they're also known in these 6 ways. And who compiled? Srila Vyasadeva compiled the Vedanta Sutra, and in order to protect it from unauthorized commentaries, he also wrote a commentary called the Srimad Bhagavatam. And he did that on the instruction of his spiritual master, Narad Muni, as the original commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. So not only did he write the Vedanta Sutra, but he also wrote a commentary, which is the Srimad Bhagavatam. And because it was written by the Lord himself, it is free from all the 4 defects. And the Vedanta Sutra, there are 3 types of evidence, Vedic evidence. Right? They are called Nyaya Prashthan, Shruti Prashthan, and Smriti Prashthan. And the Vedanta Sutra, they are called, what are they called? They're called Nyaya Prashthan. So according to these scholars, Vedanta is one of the sources, for it presents Vedic knowledge on the basis of logic and sound arguments. So the three types of Vedic evidence, and the Vedanta Sutra is the Nyaya Prashthan, or evidence based on logic and reasoning and sound arguments. And the others, like Upanishads, they're called Shruti Prashthan. And then there is the Gita, Mahabharat. Um, Gita is called Shruti Prashthan within Smriti Prashthan. So Gita is within the Mahabharata, but because Gita is spoken by the Lord Himself, it is also considered Shruti, but within Smriti. So Mahabharata and Puranas, they're called Smriti Prashthan. So Smriti is basically the realizations of the great sages. Shruti is, the direct words of the Lord Himself. And Nyaya Prashthan is the compilation of the Lord Himself in the form of Vyasadeva. Okay. So Prabhupada writes that all scientific knowledge of transcendence must be supported by Shruti, Smriti, and sound logical basis. Then Prabhupada explains the structure of the Vedanta Sutra, that how it has 4 chapters, and within those 4 chapters there are 4 divisions. And what is, how do these explanations take place? So he explains that the theme of each and every division is fully described in terms of 5 different subject matters. And what are these 5 subject? So first is pratigya, which is like the purpose, right? The solemn declaration given in the beginning of the Vedanta Sutra. So, so pratigya is followed by reasons which are called hetu. And then examples must be given in terms to explain the various facts. They're called udharan. So first reasons, then examples, and then the theme must gradually be brought nearer for understanding, which is upanaya. And finally, it must be supported by authoritative quotations from Vedic Shastras, nigamana. So this is how, how the Vedanta Sutras are explained, right? So there is a purpose given, or the objective, and then that is explained with various reasons and examples, and that theme is gradually, further developed, and finally it is supported by quotations of Vedic Shastras. So this is all from Srila Prabhupada's purports. Of course, I have never read the Vedanta Sutra, so I really don't know, how, the flow of the Vedanta Sutra and how everything is explained in there. So I'm just sharing with you what Srila Prabhupada has shared in his purports in this chapter to these verses. And the basic content of the Vedanta Sutra is like the same for all Vedic literature. And what are the 3 things that all Vedic literatures have? They have Sambandha Gyan, and this is the first 2 chapters of the Vedanta. They discuss the relationship of the living entity with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is known as Sambandha Gyan. The 3rd chapter describes how one can act in his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is called Abhidya Gyan. And the 4th chapter is the result of such devotional service, which is Prayojana Gyan. This ultimate goal of life is to go back home, back to Godhead. Okay. So all the, all the Srila Prabhupada's books that we read, whether it's the Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam or the Chaitanya Charitamrita, they also deal with these three. And it can be said that the Bhagavatam, it gives more explanation on the second portion, the Abhidheya Gyan, than the Gita. And it goes more deeper into, so many different pastimes, and uh, it describes the process of bhakti in more detail in the Bhagavatam than it's described in the Gita, because Gita is only 700 verses, so there is Abhidheya as well. All the processes of yoga, the process of deepening our relationship with God, connecting with Him through karma, jnana, dhyana, and then bhakti. So the processes are described. But in the Bhagavatam, the process of bhakti yoga is described in much more detail. And then you have more. Um, we get more information also of the prayojan in the Bhagavatam compared to the Gita. But in the in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the prayojan is further expanded. It's explained in more detail than what it is explained in the Bhagavatam. The position of Srimati Radharani, and her love for Krishna, and the nature of her love for Krishna. So the prayojan is explained in more detail in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Okay, but the basic content is the same. So, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he explained that how Vedantas should be studied. And Srila Prabhupada writes in these purports that it's not that we can study the Vedic scriptures in any way that we like. And this is what many of the scholars do. They take pride in explaining everything in their own way. Right? And Prabhupada says this any way you like method is foolishness, and it has created havoc in the Vedic culture. So, although it is not possible to alter real knowledge, people have taken to the fashion of understanding Vedic knowledge in any way they like. It is for this reason that we have presented the Bhagavad Gita as it is. So that's why Prabhupada, he called his presentation of the Gita as it is, because he just didn't explain, the Gita in the way he liked, but he explained what the direct meaning of the words expressed by the Supreme Lord Himself. So Prabhupada writes that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu confirms that all Vedic literatures, including the Upanishads, Brahma Sutra, and others, whether Shruti, Smriti, or Nyaya, must be understood according to their original statements. That means that to describe the direct meaning of the Vedic literatures is glorious, but to describe them in their one's own way, using imperfect senses and imperfect knowledge, is a disastrous blunder. And what is the direct way? So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that the Mukhya Vritti, or the direct way, is that we take the exact meaning from the dictionary. So for example, like Prabhupada gives, like Kurukshetra, many people have translated it in a way that it refers to one's body, and that the Pandavas are the senses. So many indirect meanings that they have inferred from. But Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that whatever is the dictionary meaning, like Kurukshetra, if it is a name of a place, so it should be regarded as that, and not given some other speculative meanings or inferences. So this is what it means to, you know, understand the Shastra in a direct way, literal way. And that is the proper way of understanding the Vedanta Sutra. So before I go on, I'd just like to stop here to ask you if you have any questions so far. So any doubts, any questions? Everyone's clear about what the Vedanta is, its structure, how it should be understood? Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, practically as we could understand that, but there were so many terms which were very new to us, like how different divisions of the Vedantas are there. And so, do we need to really get to understand all those in detail, or is it okay that we have a high-level understanding of what Vedanta?
Well, some of these are not so difficult. If you just follow, Srila Prabhupada's purports, some of these words like, say, the three types of Vedic evidence, like, prashthan, the Nyaya prashthan, the Shruti prashthan, and the Smriti prashthan. So we should know that. We should know these three terms, what they mean. Right? And then Gauna Vritti, right, which is the direct meaning. Right? So we should know that what is direct and what is indirect, these two terms, so that we understand that, what is the proper way that a Vedanta Sutra should be understood, that it should be understood in a direct way, just the direct meaning as of the word in the dictionary. Okay. And I don't think there are many other terms. Which other terms you find difficult?
Six divisions of that which were very new to
Huh?
5, 6. There were 5, 6 divisions of that.
Yes. Okay. That you don't need to really know. That the five elements of of the Vedanta Sutra, that how there's pratigya, there's objective, but you can logically understand that there is an objective, there's a purpose, then there you give reasons for that purpose. So it's good to have that at least that fundamental logical understanding that how the sutras are being explained. So there's an objective like athato brahma jigyasa, so that's one Vedanta sutra, right? So then that will be given, they'll be given reasons for that, right? And then there'll be reasons will be explained with examples. Those examples will be further developed, and finally they will be supported by Vedic evidence, different shlokas from verses from other scriptures. So basic flow, if you understand, it's good for our just own understanding. But we don't have to know all the terms. It's not necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Yes, Sita Komal Mataji, Hare Krishna. Pranam.
Hare Prabhuji, Pranam. Prabhu, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Prabhuji, my question is from the previous text. Can I ask Prabhu? Is that okay?
Previous text means previous discussion, or?
Yes, Prabhu, from verse number 90. Is that okay, or should we stick to the current?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Prabhuji, in this verse number text in Prabhupada's purport, Prabhupada, it's on page number 768. Prabhupada says that somebody who doesn't, who is dancing and crying in ecstasy, but, after that, if you feel that they're materially attached. So the line goes, in other words, a person devotee in other words, a devotee who dances in ecstasy, but after dancing and crying appears to be attracted to material affairs, has not yet reached the perfection of devotional service, which is called asaya shuddhi, or the perfection of existence. So, Prabhu, is this not pretendance? I could understand, Prabhu.
Yes, so Prabhupada is, making it very clear that, if our ecstatic symptoms are not followed by, complete detachment from material, desires, then, we have not reached the perfection of Krishna consciousness. So,
So these symptoms are as a result of what we are trying to pretend, or what, Prabhu?
no, sometimes, you can become emotional in a kirtan. Like, I just recently, one devotee was giving a class, right? And he was sharing that how one time in the temple, one new person came, right? And the kirtan was going on. And she was like, dancing, and, she, tears were coming out of her eyes. And, she seemed to be in great ecstasy. And then she was like, crying. And, so then, because it was her first times, to the temple, so people were curious to understand, like, like, what was she experiencing? So then someone asked her, right? One of the devotees asked her that, what were you experiencing in the kirtan? So then she was saying that she was thinking about her dog, and she was getting emotional about her dog, you know, when she was, singing and dancing in kirtan. So, yes, she was crying, but was she experiencing love of God? No, she was, experiencing attachment for, she was thinking about her dog, So, uh, so sometimes we may experience emotional, uh, we may see people experiencing, these emotional, or these symptoms, but doesn't mean that they become pure devotees. Okay. So that's why
Right,
last time I
Prabhu.
discussed that there are 9 steady symptoms of bhav. You studied in the nectar of devotion, like forgiveness, not wasting time, being humble, so having firm attachment to the Lord. So there are many, real key, the tangible sort of, and not just emotional
Symptoms.
kind of, yes, um, which one can assess whether one is really, um, you know, advanced in the, spiritual consciousness or not. Okay. Okay.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Prabhu, just one more from the 99 text,
Yes.
today's this thing. Prabhu, in the last paragraph of this thing, of this purport, Prabhupada says that similarly, all creatures will have to meet opponents, but they should not make them more inimical, because they're already inimical. And so if we talk to them harshly or impolitely, their enmity will increase further. So we should therefore follow in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as far as possible, and try to convince the opposition by quoting from the Shastras and presenting the conclusion of the Acharya. It is the Acharyas, it is the way that we should try to defeat all the enemies of the Lord. But Prabhu ji, ये तो सिर्फ senior devotees के लिए applicable है ना, not people like us, because those then, मतलब how
So,
can we, हमें तो यही suggest कीजिए तो we should ignore and इतने लोगों से वो मत करो.
yeah, so at least what Prabhupada is saying, we should not make them more inimical, right? So we follow, at least we can be humble, right? We can refer them. We can say, okay, if you really want to understand, we have books. You can study, understand what is Vedanta, what is, why we chant Hare Krishna, why, what are the different incarnations of the Lord. So we have all these books, so we can give them, instead of getting in an argument with them, we can refer them, or we can say we can put you in touch with someone who is very knowledgeable, and you can have a discussion. So this is what we can do in a humble way. Okay.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you. Hare Krishna, Pranam.
Hardik Prabhu, haribol, nice to see you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I'm just trying, as I told you, clash हो जाती हैं, तो आज
Yes.
जल्दी क्लास कर ली थी, ऑनलाइन का फायदा मिल गया थोड़ा सा.
Okay, good.
So I love that point, Doji, where you were telling that the structure of the this Vedanta Sutra and the five different names. At a time, I got confused, like are they are different things or not? But then it was very nice, and so I'm sure this was not from one single purport. You have picked it up from multiple purports and compiled this document.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Mm.
So compile
So this is.
these statements
Mm.
from the different purports in to these verses that we are discussing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it was very nice. I really liked the point wherein it was first we are establishing the purpose of the Vedanta Sutra, like Athato Brahma Jigyasa. I was hearing Chaitanya Charitamrita one time, and then because we had only heard this, that this is the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, Srimad Bhagavatam. But then there was query, like if it is actually there or we just speak it for the sake. And then he was telling that, from verse 111 to verse 1328, wherein we established Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam. That is the explanation of the first sutra, Athato Brahma Jigyasa, and then we subsequently move on to this. So I was able to remember this and really struck chords over here. I like this very much, this, and your compilation also. Thank you so much for
Thank
that.
you. Hare Krishna. Okay, one last question. Yes. Nandini Rupa Mataji, you had a question? So you ready to go on for another 10-15 minutes?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Yes.
So in 109, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he very directly explains that how Sripad Shankaracharya, right, who is the founder Acharya of the Mayavad school, so what did he do, and how did he describe, and what is the defect in his description? So this verse is very important. He says, Gana vritya jeba bhashya korilo acharya, tahara shravane nasha hoy sarvakarya. He says, Sripad Shankaracharya has described all the Vedic literatures in terms of indirect meanings. One who hears such explanations is ruined. Shravane, what will happen? Nash hoy sarva karya. So all our endeavors would be ruined if we study um, Sripad Shankaracharya's explanations, because he has done that in an indirect way. Gana Vritya. Right? One is Mukhya Vritya and one is Gana Vritya, which is indirect. So now what is the explanation given by Shankaracharya, just as expressed in Srila Prabhupada's purports? But again, these are like written in many different purports to these verses. So I've just consolidated them and put them together. So first thing is that the Mayavad sannyasis, they accept the commentary by Sri Shankaracharya known as the Sharirika Bhashya, which gives the real meaning, for them, it gives the real meaning of the Vedanta Sutra. So for the Mayavad sannyasi, the authority is what? The Sharirika Bhashya, or the explanation of the Vedanta Sutra given by Sri Shankaracharya. Now, according to historical facts, Shankaracharya, there's a little bit of like there's there's a lack of unclarity whether he appeared in, the 5th century or the 8th century. But the fact is that, he appeared, and he lived for only about 32 years, but he was such an amazingly intelligent and, scholarly person, right? Because we will learn that, he's Lord Shiva himself, and he comes with the purpose of explaining the Vedanta Sutra in a very impersonal and a very indirect way. And there is a purpose for that, which we will discuss. But first, he explained the Vedanta Sutra, which is based on monoism, Advaita. Advaita means Kevala Advaitavad. So Advaita means non-dual. That means there's no difference between the Atma and the Supreme Truth Brahman. Right? So Atma and Brahman are one. Okay, so that is what is monoism, right? Or non-dual or oneness. So thus they explain the Vedanta Sutra, Upanishads and all Vedic literatures in their own impersonal way. So the great Mayavad sannyasi, now Prabhupada writes, Sadanand Yogendra has written a book known as Vedanta Sar, in which he writes that Vedanta Sutra and Upanishads, as presented by Sri Shankaracharya in his Sharirika Bhashya commentary, are the only sources of Vedic evidence. So he's very, very, firm. So these Mayavad sannyasi, who's written this Vedanta Sar, is very firm that only Sri Shankaracharya's Sharirika Bhashya commentary is the source of Vedic evidence. And the way Shankaracharya has described the Vedanta Sutra, he's described in a very impersonal way, without reference to Vishnu Bhakti or devotional service to the Lord. Generally, people very much appreciate this Sharirika Bhashya or impersonal description of the Vedanta Sutra. But all commentaries that are devoid of devotional service to the Lord or to Lord Vishnu must be considered to differ in purport from the original Vedanta Sutra. This, any way you like method, is foolishness, and it has created havoc in the Vedic culture, Srila Prabhupada writes. So, the Vedanta Sutras, as explained by Shankaracharya, they they do not give importance to Vishnu Bhakti or devotional service to the Lord. In fact, their commentaries are devoid of devotional service. And they describe, the Lord or the truth, the absolute truth, in many indirect ways. And Srila Prabhupada writes that, there is direct denial of the Lord. That's one way to deny God. But then he says there's another way to deny God, that, you deny him in an indirect way. You say God exists, but he has no head, no legs, no hands. He cannot speak, cannot hear, cannot eat. This is a negative way of denying his existence. Right? So there is a direct way saying, okay, God doesn't exist. But the other way of denying is a negative way, that yes, God exists, but God can't speak, God can't eat, God can't dance. So because he has no head, he has no legs, he has no hands. So a person who cannot see is called blind, and a person who cannot walk is lame, and a person who has no hands is called helpless. One who cannot speak is called dumb, and one who cannot hear is called deaf. The Mayavadi's proposition that God has no legs, no eyes, no ears, no hands is an indirect way of insulting him by defining him as blind, deaf, dumb, lame, helpless, etc. So even though Prabhupada says they present themselves as great Vedantists, they are factually Maya apritaha jnana. In other words, they seem to be very learned scholars, but the essence of their knowledge has been taken away. So Srila Prabhupada is very strong on this fact. And then he says that, impersonal Mayavadis, they try to always defy the Vaishnavas because Vaishnavas accept the Supreme Personality as the supreme cause and want to serve Him. They want to talk with Him and they want to see the Lord. And similarly, the Lord is also eager to see His devotees talk, eat, and dance with Him. Right? But Srila Prabhupada writes that these personal exchanges of love, they do not appeal to the Mayavad sannyasis. Therefore, the original purpose of the Mayavad sannyasis of Benares in meeting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was to defeat his personal conception of God. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, however, as a preacher, turned the minds of the Mayavad sannyasis. And the last thing that Prabhupada explains in his purports is that the Mayavad sannyasis, they believe that Krishna has a body made of material elements and that the activities of loving service to Krishna are just sentiments. Right? They all are sentimental in nature. They're not based on any absolute truth. And that's why these sannyasis or they're called Mayavadis because their opinion is that Krishna has a body made of Maya, that any form for them is the nature because that form is afflicted by illusion, and that's why there's a form, right? And so Krishna's body is made of Maya, and loving service of the Lord executed by devotees is also Maya. They consider such devotional service to be an aspect of fruitive activities, karma kanda. Karma kanda. So, according to their view, bhakti consists of mental speculations or sometimes meditations. This is the difference between Mayavadi and Vaishnava philosophies. Okay, so in these amazing statements by Srila Prabhupada, we get a clear understanding that what Mayavad philosophy is and how it differs from devotional knowledge. So now the last thing that we will cover for 5 minutes is that what is the reason for this kind of explanation? Shankaracharya, he's not an ordinary acharya. So why did he's considered the incarnation of Lord Shiva. So why did he spread this indirect and impersonal explanation of the Vedanta Sutra and create havoc, as Prabhupada says, in Vedic culture? So this is explained in 110. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Tahara naika dosha Ishvara agya paye Gona artha korilo mukhya artha achadya. So Shankaracharya is not at fault, for it is under the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that he has covered the real purport of the Vedas. So when Shankaracharya appeared, at that time, many people had become influenced by Buddhism, by Jainism, and also those who claimed to follow Vedic literature. They were engaging in many different types of unauthorized sacrifices, a lot of karma kanda type of religion that had become, and his purpose was he wanted to establish the knowledge or the gyan side of the Vedic literature. So it's explained in this purport very beautifully. Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, he says that unfortunately, Sri Shankaracharya, by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, compromised between atheism and theism in order to cheat the atheists and bring them to theism. And to do so, he gave up the direct meaning of Vedic knowledge and tried to present a meaning which is indirect. It is with that purpose that he wrote his Sharirika Bhashya commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Okay. So he wanted to attract all these atheists and these even Buddhists. They don't believe in God, right? So how do we attract them back to the Vedic knowledge? So the way to do that is what he did. He gave an indirect explanation of the Vedanta Sutra and an impersonal explanation of the Vedanta Sutra to again attract them back to Vedic literature and also establish the authority of Vedic scriptures. And this is explained in the Padma Purana. Srila Prabhupada has shared this beautiful excerpt from the Padma Purana, where Lord Shiva is informing his wife. He says, this Mayavad philosophy is impious, right? Asat Shastra, it is covered Buddhism. My dear Parvati, in Kali Yuga, I assume the form of a Brahmana and I teach this imagined Mayavad philosophy. In order to cheat the atheists, I describe the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be without form and without qualities. And similarly, in explaining Vedanta, I describe the same Mayavad philosophy in order to mislead the entire population towards atheism by denying the personal form of Lord. And then in the Shiv Purana, this was from the Padma Purana, and in the Shiv Purana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead told Lord Shiva that in Kali Yuga, mislead the people in general by propounding imaginary meanings for the Vedas to bewilder them. These are the descriptions of the Puranas. So this is why Shankaracharya, he explained the Vedic literatures in a very indirect and impersonal way, because he had a real mission of attracting many people who had turned to atheism and becoming so ritualistic in their practices of the Vedic literatures. So he wanted to again draw them back and establish the authority of the Vedic literature. Okay. So we will stop here today. So there's a lot of important philosophical points Srila Prabhupada has shared. As I told you, that this chapter has some of the longest purports. Not longest, but almost every verse has a purport. If you see all the verses that we discussed, we have discussed maybe 12 verses today, and only one verse didn't have a purport. So more than 90% of the verses in this chapter have purports. And some of them are very long. Yes, Hardik Prabhu, you've raised your hands. Any questions? Hardik Prabhu, you can ask your question.
Oh, yes, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. So, Prabhuji, I was asking, I'm sure you must have addressed this earlier, or maybe somebody asked you. I've not been regular. But first is about why the Srila Prabhupada or the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu directly say so much that Mayavadi Bhashya Sunila Haila Sarvanash, because sometimes we as devotees read it in order to be able to appreciate our philosophy better, and to be able to, as Prabhupada mentions, to be able to defeat them also. The second part of the question is connected, like you're mentioning right now, that the reason Shankaracharya appeared was to bridge the gap between theism and atheism. But then we refer that Mayavadis are being a Mayavadi is worse than being an atheist, and that is what also Mahaprabhu mentions. So, is the gap actually being bridged or not?
Well, at some level it is, right? But what happens is that why, why do we say, why are such strong statements made against, the Mayavad philosophy? Because first of all, it decries, the personal feature of the Supreme Lord. So one is that. And the other is that when one becomes impersonalist, then what happens? If they pursue the impersonal path, then for a long, long time, they're going to lose an opportunity to develop, a personal relationship with the Lord. And that's why it's considered, that it's even worse than anything else, because what will happen that although the living entity will be liberated, but it will lose its opportunity uh, to experience this devotional experience with the Supreme Lord. Okay. So Mayavadi Bhashya
Uh, I
yes.
Yes, Mujit. I am just asking that this particular reference or statement is meant for whom? Which class? Is it meant for all of us?
Which
Is it
statement?
meant for only this statement, Haile Sarvanash? Is it meant for
So
devotees in general? And like, is it not meant for preachers or what?
yes, so
Because we are studying parts of it, no?
we can study, yes. If we study under guidance, we must study, right? The Purva Paksha, that we must understand what the opponent's philosophy is. So when that is studied under guidance, you know, and as a preacher, if one wants to understand all the finer elements of the Mayavad philosophy, definitely we see many Prabhupada's disciples have studied. I remember one of the first seminars I heard was by Ravindra Swarup Prabhu. The dangers of Mayavad philosophy, right, or defeating impersonalism, and it was like there were like 20 or something, more than 20 tapes. That time I bought, um, and he went through in such great detail uh, defeating Mayavad philosophy. And the most amazing thing I found, that all his points were taken from Srila Prabhupada's purports. So he explained things in very philosophical, in a very like modern way. He used, like different sources, very scholarly, and referring to many different scholars. But ultimately, whatever evidence he gave, right, he backed it up with a statement from Srila Prabhupada's purports. He says, so these arguments that all these scholars, uh, may present, these are given in Srila Prabhupada's books. So, yes, we must understand, but it has to be done, under proper care. And see, for a devotee, what happens is that we are trying to cultivate. Um, so this Mayavadi Bhashya Sunne Hoy Sarvanash, right? So I'll have to just let me pull that verse up. I think Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said that to, I'm forgetting to whom. Do you remember who he said that to?
No.
One second, let me.
I'm. I'll find it out online.
Yeah, Mahadi Bhashya Sunile Hoy Sarva Nash. So this is, 1 second, this is in Madhya Lila 6.19, right?
169.
169.
Yes, 169. So here
Sarvam Bhattacharya.
so he's saying that Jivere Nishtara Lagi Sutra Koila. So again, here he's speaking to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who's also an impersonalist, right? At that time. And he convinces him. Um, about the superiority of the devotional devotional knowledge and the devotional understanding, the personal understanding of. So yes, this one is explained to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And so who was an impersonal, he was one of the greatest impersonalists ever. So, and he became a devotee, which is like one of the, it's such a critical point, or this is a really point of celebration, that when when Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he becomes a follower of Lord Chaitanya. So this Mayavadi Bhashya Sunne Hoy Sarvanas, this is applicable for all levels of spiritualists, whether one is new or ultimately what happens, that one becomes offensive towards the form of the Lord and loses the opportunity for a long time to associate in pure devotional service. So yes, in a general sense, it's applicable for everyone.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Understood. The second part, like, of the question,
Yes.
if Shankaracharya's philosophy has to be a bridge should lie somewhere between 0 and 1, right? But here it is going to -1. So how is it actually a bridge then? Because anyone who is reading it or discussing it is actually going away from the Lord.
Yeah, so
So
it's a bridge in the sense that at least you're getting connected back to the Vedic scriptures and the Vedic processes, right? So in that sense, it's a bridge, right? So
okay, so in fact the bridge, as in they are linking to the Vedas, and from the Vedas they are taking it ahead, like
yes,
later on, Madhvacharya and other devotees, they base their arguments on the Vedas itself. So they
yes,
are establishing Vedas.
yes. So gradually you will see that over time, right? We will discuss next time that how there's a gradual progression, that um, all the Vaishnava acharyas, they also have written commentaries on the Vedanta Sutra, and how they have brought closer people, like over time, to the the real ultimate understanding of what the Vedanta Sutras actually explain. Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
So don't worry if you don't get all the terms, and don't worry if this has gone a little bit over your head. Uh, it'll take a few readings. I mean, I read this so many times just to put it all together. So, so, so it took a lot of readings, to extract all these different purports and put them together and put them in a sequence that makes it maybe a little easier to understand. I don't know if it was easy, but at least it was easier for me to explain it. So, yes, Ekta, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I just have a quick question.
Yes.
Is it okay?
Yes.
So we have meditation, different meditation techniques, different yoga techniques and all. So I was wondering, the chanting that we do, is that also, can that be called a form of meditation? Or is that different than like a one type of meditation technique, but it's more like devotion and love, but can it be called meditation also?
Yeah, definitely. We are meditating on, the form and the names and the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, right? By taking His holy names. So yes,
Okay.
it's called mantra meditation, right? So we
Okay.
focus on the sound and the names of, the Lord. So we are actually meditating. Yes, we are focusing our mind. Meditate, right? We are contemplating. We're focusing our minds on the names and pastimes of the Supreme Lord.
Okay. Got it. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay, Hare Krishna. So any other thoughts or comments or realizations you would like to share?
Prabhuji, I would like to share one thing.
Yes.
When we went to Mayapur in the month of April, Priya Sakha Prabhu told us this, and it is very interesting. Maybe it is of benefit. to everyone. So sharing that realization only. So the way he mentioned was that what happened, the Brahmanas earlier in the ancient times, they were kind of becoming arrogant because of their knowledge of the scriptures, Vedas, and then at that point of time, they had that special power of uh, performing the bali of animals. And then with that, they were able to elevate that soul into a human life, basically. But because of the misuse, then they started killing animals because of arrogance, because we are Brahmanas and we can do this and that in the name of religious sacrifices, right? Then after that, Krishna came as Buddha, Lord Buddha, to stop the killing of all the animals, to reset the entire system. Then he basically rejected all the Vedas and he introduced the concept of ahimsa paramo dharma, which is like shunyavad, that
Yeah.
do not do anything. Then after that, Lord Shiva came as Shankaracharya, the way you mentioned, to introduce the system, basically the Vedic system, but in a way it was introduced as a Mayavad or Nirvisheshwa, that we become one with the Lord, we merge into the formless, right?
Yes.
And then after that, we got the four sampradayas, and that is where Lord Chaitanya came, and then he distinguished these sampradayas, they distinguished that the jiva is different from the Lord, and we have to be indulged in the bhakti of the Supreme, and we are different than the Lord. So I think that is what I understand. But eventually, what happens is the entire transformation happened by Lord's arrangement only. But then there are still some portions which are left and still being followed. Like we see Buddhism is still there, and then the Mayavad philosophy is still there. I think that is where I personally feel things are getting complicated, maybe.
Yes, you have explained nicely, and that is a progression, and we will discuss, next time, um, the the commentaries given by our, our Vaishnava acharyas. So the how what how do they explain Vedanta, and ultimately, how uh, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he sort of comprehensively he took, these main points from all our acharyas, and he put the Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva. So yes, thank you, Prabhu, for sharing.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Yes, thank you for those who attended, and you have to leave. No worries. Any other closing thoughts or questions you have? Vishnu Charan Prabhu, how are you?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I'm fine, Prabhuji, by your mercy, by Vaishnava's blessings. And class is always wonderful, Prabhuji. I was not knowing this. I have heard other things, but I was not knowing this, that in the Padam Puran, it is so clear reference given that, Lord Shiva is saying to Parvati Mata that I assume the form of a Brahman and then I preach like this. So, Prabhuji, this is so clear evidence. And then also in Shiva Puran, Lord Krishna is saying to, Lord Shiva, that go and preach like this. So, Prabhuji, it is always, so helpful for our spiritual benefit by attending such classes. So,
Yes,
thank you, Prabhuji, for taking out that time and effort for
Srila
us.
Prabhupada has blessed us with all these. I mean, the kind of
Yes.
work that Srila Prabhupada has done, I mean, like, in explaining so many of these vital points,
Mm.
So these are all there in the purports. The
And
nothing
Prabhuji,
that
your
I,
background looks like that you are staying in some temple or what?
yes, I'm in my Guru Maharaj's ashram
Oh,
yes.
it's looking very, simple and sober.
Yes, yes. So
Sattvic mood.
this is the one small room at the back of the house. So, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
So thank you, everyone. Sita Komal Mataji, Nandani Rupa Mataji, Hardik Prabhu, Taruni Mataji, Taruni Gopi Mataji, Param Kishore Prabhu, Haribol, Nupur
Hare
Mataji,
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Umesh Prabhu, Hare Krishna, Vishaka Mataji, Haribol, Navanita
Hare
Mataji,
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Pranam.
Dhanyavad,
Thank
Haribol,
you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for taking out time, even though your
Yeah,
schedule is very busy.
So anyway, one or more two sections will be a little philosophical. After that, we'll be back to. So Chaitanya Charitamrita is like that. You know, you have Lila, and then suddenly you have a lot of condensed Siddhanta, a lot of.
But Prabhuji, still I feel that in every session we get to learn something good, very new.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Have a good week.
Thank you, Prabhu.
And hope to see
Hare
you
Krishna,
next Sunday, everyone.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu, for scrutinizingly studying this again and again and summarizing it and taking the juice out of it. And आजकल गर्मियाँ हैं, यहाँ पे बेल का शरबत हम सब पी रहे हैं, and I know how messy it is. उस बेल को पहले डुबा के रखो, फिर उसको मसलो, फिर छानो, ये सब आपने हमारे लिए किया, बाहर बैठे हुए भी, और हमने बस पी लिया. So, you know, and उसका immediately nourishment भी मिल गया, and I will never be able to do this. So thank you for, you know, scrutinizingly studying it, simplifying it, and then just churning it and serving it to us.
Thank you, Mataji.
Deep gratitude.
Very good. Okay, have a good week, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Pranam.
Dhanyavad.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.